Hello, and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Code on the Stack Overflow podcast. If this is your first time listening, this is a segment where we get senior engineering leaders in the same room, same virtual room anyway, and we let them ask each other questions about the work they're doing, how they build teams, and the biggest challenges they're facing right now. My name is Ira May. I am the B2B editor at Stack Overflow, and today I'm joined by two of my colleagues at Stack, strategic product leader Janice Manningham and site reliability engineer Josh Zhang. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, Eric, good.
Good.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for joining us. We also, in addition to Janice and Josh, we have a guest today. That's Will Allen. He's a VP at Cloudflare. Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
Great to have you. So we wanted to get you in the virtual room today because we wanted to talk about a new pay-per-crawl model that Cloudflare and Stack Overflow are co-launching. So this is a model that is an effort to monetize public data and get bots to pay for crawls. So I'll turn it over from there to Janice and let her tell you all a little bit about this project.
Thanks, Ira. So let's talk about pay-per-crawl. First, I want to emphasize that it's not to be confused with what others might have heard, which is pay-per-crawl, as in a piece of paper and crawl. It is, in a more correct form, paying for each type of crawl or bot who is attempting to access a site. Why we are talking pay-per-crawl today is because with the rise of AI crawlers, they fundamentally broken what I believe is the old internet, which is open versus block models. Traditionally, we've had a lot of content platforms like Stack Overflow, operate in a way where we have open access generally for bots to be able to take advantage of our public content. We block for any malicious activity, but with the rise of AI products looking to take data from models training, we have found ourselves in a position in the last year or so to revisit that approach and look at ways for us to protect our data against commercial usage for model training, but also still allowing access to our community. That's why companies like Stack and Cloudflare have started to talk openly about this pay access to our content and other content providers as well. I want to actually bring in Josh to explain a little bit about historically what Stack has done with our bot traffic and the work he has done to manage this set of AI crawlers to date and before we really worked closely with Will and Cloudflare.
Sure. So historically, before the advent of AI, a lot of bots would actually just try to bring a website down, right? So like one of the reasons we switched to Cloudflare was for their DDoS mitigation. And I basically specialized in protecting the site from bots that brought the site down. But with the advent of AI, bots evolved because now there's money in scraping and sending as much traffic as you can to a website, but masking it as normal traffic. So on one hand, they're not taking your site down, but they are just sending you a ton of extra traffic that you ultimately have to pay for that isn't bringing any value. In fact, they could take away your value because if they're taking the data but not kind of sending traffic back to your site, it's not a good virtuous cycle, right? So with bots getting more and more sophisticated, it's getting really complicated to try to basically weed out the good traffic from the bad. In fact, like very recently, the bots are getting so good, they're fooling advertisers. They're basically eating up ad impressions because it used to be they would scrape using, a headless, it's just like curl or very simple programmatic ways to access the site. And that wouldn't trigger any kind of ad impression, which is at least something. But now they're using headless browsers and other methods to basically completely fool you. And we might be able to catch them, but ultimately they're eating up ad impressions, which is also really terrible back to, the advertisers themselves. So this is really ever going arms race against basically bots that are just trying to extract as much information from you as possible while basically trying to pretend to be legitimate traffic.
Yeah, just like to feed off of that as well. I think we were kind of playing like account masking for a while, don't you think, Josh? Where we were doing more of an active block approach where ad hoc we identify some malicious activity from specific user agents or bots and then would just like kind of add them to a block list. And then we, continued trying to doing that approach, and that block list started to get a little bit unwieldy.
Definitely hard to scale that approach where basically just play whack-a-mole, right? And there are other tools you can use like fingerprinting and Cloudflare's bot score and things like that. But of course, it's an adversarial relationship, so the people writing the bots know what they have to defeat. So you're basically it's an ongoing cycle of trying to catch the next technology wave and things like that. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, there's more of them than there are of us.
Totally. And so then I think we looked into using Cloudflare and their existing tools and infrastructures to kind of support us in this new situation and give us the robust tools needed to manage that. So I wanted to talk to you, Will, about the product that you present with Cloudflare and how you've helped Stack Overflow with that, managing bots and allowing us to control traffic.
Amazing. Thanks again for having me, and thanks for being just a phenomenal partner. I mean, we sort of start from like a radically simple philosophy, which is that you, as an incredible business and partner, you should be in the driver's seat over sort of what happens to the content and sort of how that content's being accessed on the sites that you control. And that's not saying bots are good or bad, or crawlers are good or bad, or AI is good or bad. It's just saying that you should get to decide, right? And there are real costs associated with serving this large amounts of traffic, and you really do have to think about what's the sustainable business model for the future when sort of you have the old model of all of my content would be scanned and indexed, and I would get a lot of referral traffic back over, and I could either monetize it directly or indirectly, or at least get attribution. That model is broken down and continues to break down even further. So there need to be new models that are out there. And so our goal here is just to support folks like you, to give you the tools to say, like, understand the identity of the bots and the agents that are coming, but then even more importantly, take different action based upon who that is.
Yeah, that's exactly what we found really useful about the Cloudflare's tools. I really like the sort of bot categories and the registration process that allow us to, I guess, systematize how we look at bots and therefore like the framework for how we manage those. To your point, each company has different ways to manage and think about how to work with those bots. And so just starting at a very foundational level of being able to help categorize them and then allowing the companies to do what they want with those was really helpful. I know Josh has also identified for us the different types of bot categories, and we've been able to distinguish between the ones that we want to continue to support to access our site and then the ones that we think we want to put sort of like on a different bucket so that we can assess like what to do with them. I don't know, Josh, if you want to say more to that.
Yeah, with so many different kinds of bots, like some of them are always going to still be useful and you don't want to block them, right? Like search engine crawlers historically, that's a lifeblood of any website on the internet. So if you stop them, man, you're asking for a lot of trouble unless you're a very specific kind of website. So being easily able to categorize them is been huge from Cloudflare. Like if our team had to manage all the different crawlers, registration, IP addresses, and things like that, our team would have to be so much bigger. But luckily, like with the tools that we're given, we're able to basically say, okay, this is identify as a business. This is what we want. This is what we don't know about. This is what we don't want. And basically easily just pick those buckets from Cloudflare and just quickly produce rules that more or less enforce this. Of course, there's still going to be new bots that we have to do research on and basically like block that are very much at the forefront, but that's part of the ongoing cycle, right? And eventually those bots will get identified and added specifically to the bucket. And that can hopefully help everybody on the Cloudflare network because those lists will keep getting updated.
And that's one of our goals, I would say, is that to have that sort of bi-directional communication. And then just the fact that we see so, like the volume of traffic that we see is so massive across so many different sectors and industries, it allows us to do that, right? So that you don't have to staff up entire teams or think about the day in. Like, we want to really take that burden of understanding sort of, who are these agents that are coming? Who are these bots? Who are these crawlers? And then let you again be in the driver's seat to make that decision about, do you want to allow them? Do you want to disallow them? Do you want to rate limit them, or do you want to charge them? But sort of even just the categorization to understand sort of like, wait, who's accessing this? What are they accessing? And what are they doing with this content once it's been accessed? We just spend a lot of time try to make that as easy as possible for you.
Yeah, it's almost funny. It's as if you've had internal views of like how we were manually managing this before. We had our own Excel spreadsheet that had, color coded categories and status and all that. And so when we started moving over to Cloudflare's tooling, it was almost like this intuitive, like read our minds in terms of what we needed. So that was really great. We started working with Cloudflare. We set up, our management framework and had, scalable ways to manage bot traffic that we talked about. And then we started looking into the paper crawl beta product that Cloudflare launched recently. So, as part of our bot traffic monitoring, we use that against how we look at our data licensing opportunities as well. So Stack Overflow has been, licensing our data and have it available for model training with Frontier AI Labs. But we were seeing other intentions with bots, maybe seemingly trying to access our data for similar reasons. And we thought that there was an opportunity there as well. If we're not seeing interest from, the human in the loop having these more formal license contract discussions, but yet we're seeing those, bot traffic where there's increased requests to hit our sites. Why not meet the interest and the demand where they are and see if there's ways to capture their interest through this pay-per-crawl motion? So when Cloudflare and when you approached us about this product, it was really enticing for us because we were seeing so much interest from our view with our bot traffic. And I thought that there was a great sort of opportunity to test our assumptions about whether there was any good, meaningful monetization opportunities with that. So with, the existing framework that you allowed us to have with the bot categories, it was really seamless to be able to basically turn this on and essentially give these bots a new sort of instructions on what to do with this paywall that we were giving them. Josh, I'd love for you to speak more about how we implemented that from a technical perspective.
Yeah, sure. So when we were enrolled in Cloudflare's pay-per-crawl program, it was actually pretty simple. It was just a UI that basically wrapped some existing rules into their WAF, and they actually created a bunch of dashboarding. That's honestly like the bigger piece that made my life a bit easier, right? So there were already pre-populated list of bots that basically were targeted, and you can choose what to do, either allow the traffic through or basically charge them. You set a charge rate. But ultimately, the dashboarding allowed you to kind of see once you flip on the switch what's happening with the traffic in a very holistic way. Like, interestingly, when we turned on pay-per-crawl and we started serving, I think it's a 402, some of the traffic from those bots that used to just get a block, a 403, they stopped sending traffic our way. So it's almost like they got the message. So that was actually really simple to turn on, and it was really good because we could basically very quickly implement and test our theories without basically investing too much time into it.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest value adds for us, being able to quickly turn on essentially a switch in our Cloudflare instance for this 402 message to be sent to bots and see if we get any activity. We were able to work very closely with you, Will, to talk through some of these edge cases and use cases around, where we can expect bot activity. And I think it sends a pretty good message in this sort of like bot ecosphere about what we're open for in terms of business and monetization. And I'm hoping that more and more these 402s will help drive conversion, and the humans behind these bots will provide payment information for us to start managing this. And then a different aspect of this as well that's different from our bigger licensing deals is it helps support a different type of access usage, more of a paper usage, thus the word paper crawl. Typically with our license deals, it's a much more comprehensive contract that includes, the bulk majority of our data set. But with paper crawl, what we thought was also enticing potentially is the ability to just scrape what you need. And the bots have the ability to control that, obviously with proper payment. And so I thought that I really liked that differentiation and that different pricing model to see if there's different ways we can hit the market. Yeah, and would love to hear, Will, how you've seen this sort of work out with other organizations to date.
I mean, what I love about the way you all are pushing this forward is, I mean, you're just an ideal customer for us. And, really how you think about this rhymes with other people that we speak with, in that you have recognized for a long time, again, that business model of the internet's changing and you're experimenting with multiple models, right? And so different ways to have this sort of be successful for you. And it all starts, I think, from that sort of message that you send to the crawler or the agent. And you can either sort of let them come straight through, get the content. You can sort of block them outright, or you can send this HTTP 402 message, which just says payment required. And what I love about that is that it's not a no, it's a yes if, right? Like, you are welcome to come get this if there's some sort of payment that happens in here. And that payment can happen directly, programmatically, machine to machine. So it's sort of built that way. It could also happen that just people start to, the receiving end of these 402 messages, look at their logs and they're like, I just got to call them, right? I got to call Janice and Josh to sort of strike a direct deal. And that's a win too, right? You've got incredible BD teams and executive teams who are thinking about this. And if they can get these sort of direct calls as well, and we see that with other customers of ours, where maybe they do some level of machine transactions, but even more so, it's giving them the tools that they need to strike these deals across the board, right? To say that, like, hey, we've got incredible content. We want to work together. We want to make this thing happen. And so this payment required message is really just give me a call. And that's how we think about this, is that we want to support all of these various mechanisms and all of these different ways for you to sort of, again, enforce your preferences for your content and build the business that you want to build. And it's going to take different shapes. And so that's where we love this sort of experimentation and love this sort of collaboration, because it allows us to build these great products and really to serve folks like yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what we're also excited about in terms of opening this up. And it's not just expanding beyond data licensing deals, but also looking at other use cases. We've seen some interesting activity from companies who typically we feel like are not engaging in like the AI arms race, but maybe, finding our data useful in other ways. And so, Josh and I have been curious and excited to see if there's ways to do business with other types of businesses where they still find our data to be valuable, but we're offering in a way that is, to your point, palatable and accessible on their terms versus having to go through these much, larger unwieldy deals with our procurement and business teams. And then I think just moving forward, as we've been talking a little bit about how pay per crawl works today, and moving forward, I think we talked a little bit about how orgs can use pay per crawl, as long as I think bots are registered through Cloudflare, and we talked about the categorization earlier, it allows them to sort of be brought into this 402 HTTP code, and then that gives them that message to say, hey, let's do business, let's talk, and then hopefully we can go from there.
And we've got even more, I would say, more coming on that front. And so, there are different ways to think about sort of these, programmatic payments, right? And so the way it's working today is that there is some sort of, registration for that. So we can make sure that like you're only charging that exact specific crawler. But one of the reasons we're supporting new payment protocols like the X402 work that we're doing is to allow, in some cases, you might not care about who is operating the crawler or the agent on the other end, as long as there's some sort of payment that's happening. And that allows us to work and support those use cases as well. So again, all of this sort of comes, back to that same philosophy of you all should be in control. How do you make it as simple as possible to do business with you, to get access to your content? We've got one way that works today, give you all of the tools, all of the analytics you have, and there's more coming on that front as well to make it even easier to make those payments.
Yep. And I think more broadly, the message that we want to get across to is that, we have, a rich corpus of, 15 years plus of high value content, question answer site focused on helping developers get unstuck. And, we want to make that data available, but for the right use cases and for the right access controls. And so this is just adding on to our existing sort of message around our new era, a new space with properly licensing our data.
Thanks for being an incredible partner. And I love how pioneering you all are in this and to think about this. And I know, so many folks that I have worked with and continue to work with, have used Stack as sort of a foundation of how they learn and how they think. And I just love the innovation that you all are bringing to sort of these new business models of the internet. And so thanks for having so much fun and building these great products together.
Yeah, totally. The partnership has been great. And, we really love working together with the same sort of shared goals and interests. And Cloudflare has been wonderful with that. So thank you so much, Will.
All right. That is going to do it for this episode. If you have suggestions for topics to cover or guests that you would love to hear from, you can email podcast@stackoverflow.com. My name is Ira May, and I'm the B2B editor at Stack Overflow. Today I was joined by Janice Manningham and Josh Zhang, my colleagues at Stack Overflow, as well as Will Allen, who's the VP at Cloudflare. Do you guys want to say goodbye and let folks know where they can find you?
Yeah, I'll go from my side, Will Allen. You can find me, go to cloudflare.com, check out a lot of our great things. It's actually, we've got an incredible amount of services for free. So if you just got a domain and you want to test something out, kick the tires, I highly recommend it. All of my personal projects have been there for years and years. And then you can find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter at William Allen. So thanks again for having me.
Yep, and you can find more about Stack Overflow's data licensing and content available for commercial usage on stackoverflow.co, and I'm also available on LinkedIn.
Yep, and I am also on LinkedIn, Josh Zhang SRE, and I've also written a couple of blog posts on Stack Overflow blog, so I'm on there too.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Leaders of Code.